Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started. Is it a good time in the story?
Yes.
Did I hit the very end? Jackknife trailer is fixed. Okay. Everybody in Zoom world, can you hear me? Let me know or give a thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I am standing in for Bridget, who is with us on Zoom, and Mike is here as well. So he's gonna definitely be the better half of your facilitators tonight. But tonight's plan is to do some brief introductions, I guess, if we need that. I think everybody, we don't have anybody new, do we? Okay, so actually, I think we're going to skip introductions if that's okay and move in. I'm going to do just a really brief update on kind of the fires going on and our situation and some of the items that our area prevention team has been working on so that you guys know what is out there and what's being done that way. And then we are going to start working. We definitely heard the input at the last meeting. We know that there's a lot of desire for action. So we're trying to work with that and move forward with some action and also get our goals interwoven into that. And so what we thought of doing tonight was taking a look at the fire adapted communities wheel that we saw at the last meeting, kind of identify what items are being done right now already, what items are being addressed, and then look at some areas within that wheel that maybe aren't being addressed that we can start working on right now and set up some committees or at least designate those focus areas to start working on. So that we kind of have a path for action. We can even look at some activities or some projects to do within those. Hi, Judy. And so that is the plan of action. And so I will just start with a real brief update. Our fire situation, it is definitely fire season. It started early and it's been going gangbusters. We have had in Montana year to date 1,780 fires that have burned 453,523 acres. So that's a lot of fires and a lot of acreage for this time of year. Normally our fire season really gets going in August, and this year it got going in July. We have in our northern Rockies area, which is a little bit beyond Montana, but definitely includes Montana, there were 38 uncontained large fires. We've got 5 type 1 incident management teams, and those incident management teams handle the most complex fires, usually ones that involve structures or and or a lot of resources. And then we also have 7 type 2 incident management teams on assignment. And down here in Ravalli, you guys know we've got fires all around, and we've got some nice ones hanging up on the hillside over there. So you guys know that it's tough out there. We are at extreme fire danger in both Ravalli County and Missoula County and Mineral. We are in stage 2 fire restrictions. That's no campfires, no kind of the hoot owl, so no operation of anything with an internal combustion engine between the hours of 1 p.m. and 1 a.m. And all vehicles need to be on a designated road. So we are working on restricting, trying to do our best to restrict the human starts. We can't stop Mother Nature, but we can try and avoid human starts. In Montana, 8 out of 10 fires are usually human started. So restrictions hopefully will have an effect. We do have in place our Southwest Montana prevention team. It's an interagency team that's made up of a lot of prevention individuals, myself, Anna Bateson, and some Lolo National Forest staff. Bridget is also on the team, and we have county members that are also on our team. We work together, and we actually have in place both statewide and local campaigns that we're doing. We have statewide campaigns on GSTV, which are gas station ads. So the annoying videos that play when you start to pump, well, we've got jingles on that talking about 9 out of 10 wildfires in the nation are human caused, and the new website to direct people to, which that's a good note. We have a new fire restrictions website and fire information website called www.mtfireinfo.org. If you go over there, I've got stickers and little postcards that have it. It's a great source to send your neighbors and your friends to when they ask about what fires are going on or what fire restrictions are in place. It has the fire restrictions for every jurisdictional area in the state of Montana. And just yesterday, they also put on an active fire dashboard so that when you go there, you see all the active fires that are going in Montana and information on all of them. And it's also linked to NCWeb. So you then can also find all the incidents that are going on throughout the nation. So great site for you to direct people to. And we're working on making that a one-stop shop, but it's not there yet, but it's going to get there. So a lot of our prevention team messaging is directing people to this website so that they know what fire restrictions are in place and they know more about the fires in their area. So we have this GSTV platform going. We also have Spotify and Pandora that we have ads going on that. And so, and we have, it's called OTT, over the top, but it's actually online TV streaming ads. So if anybody's using Hulu or any type of Roku, any type of streaming of either ABC or NBC, we will have ads, multiple ads on that throughout the state. And we have Senator Daines, we have Senator Tester, and we have Representative Rosendale that have all done 30-second PSAs pointing to our new website, but also saying, hey, it's a nasty fire season. Watch out for the restrictions out there. Know before you go. So we have those in place. And then we have just started local campaigns on the Spotify and Pandora, on our radio stations, in our newspapers, all within Western Montana, and let's see what I've gotten. On the OTT, that is going to be also focusing on, it'll be statewide, but extra focus on Western Montana too. And those local campaigns will really push the stage 2 restrictions, what exactly those mean, and the website. So we've got those in play. We have billboards. We have a billboard outside of Hamilton. We've got one on Reserve Street up on by the bridge in Missoula, and we have one on US 93 North. And then in northern Montana, our Northwestern Land Office actually has 3 to 4 billboards up there, and those are also pointing to the new fire restriction website. We are doing county fairs everywhere, so we have a lot of postcards and handouts with restrictions information and that new website too, and stickers, which I brought some of those. So those will be out, and I think that's not it, but that's all I'm remembering right now. But we have been really busy, and we are going to keep being busy because we are trying to keep those human starts to a minimum. And we are still doing home assessments and publicizing that and trying to get people to be aware of being prepared, because when smoke is in the air, that's when they're listening. So are there any questions on that? I tried not to take too much time. Okay. So we're going to go into that fire adapted communities wheel, and I'll go through it, and as a group, we can kind of identify what areas have already been working on what areas. So we've got in our public health. Well, I guess we should start too and say an ultimate goal, part of what we had established as our mission was creating these fire adapted communities, right? These communities that can withstand fire, because fire is inevitable, it's going to happen. So we need to see if we can help our communities be prepared for fire, help our homeowners be prepared so that when fire comes through, their home is still standing. And do that at a community level. Did I make that bigger?
No, she didn't. Mind if I add one thing while you're
Yeah,
on?
no, go for it.
So if you guys don't mind me interjecting, just to review our mission statement that we came up with as a group is to serve as a hub for wildfire preparedness activities through proactive and collaborative programs. And so that being our mission, these are the programs that will establish that foundation within our communities. So that was it.
Okay,
Just wanted to
no, that
tag
was
in.
good. Yep. So we didn't actually identify fire adapted communities in our mission,
But yes.
but it is, I guess it probably is our ultimate end goal. In the collaborative programs will create that.
Right.
So some of the things that already are being worked on. We've got safety and evacuation. Ready, set, go, safety zones, improved ingress, egress, go kits, and evacuation plans. This is, in part, the Office of Emergency Management. They definitely have an evacuation process that is established. Fire in the RIT, we also are working on getting that information out. What is the process? What is a go kit? How do you do this? Who do you contact? Who do you go to for information? And so this is being addressed, but remember, Fire in the RIT is us too. This is our outreach campaign, but that's us. Resident and community mitigation, fire-wise, defensible space, home hardening, those home assessments. We've got Bitterroot RC&D, Byron and his crew have been working hard with home 50-50 cost shares, creating defensible space and doing mitigation on large property. Fire in the RIT, DNRC, the Forest Service, we've all been working together, all our local fire departments, at trying to address this. So we are working on this, but we also have a lot more work to do in this. We've done less than 40, or probably about 40 home assessments in the past 4 years in Ravalli County, and we have 16,000 homes sitting in moderate to high wildfire danger. So we need to do more, right?
Is that something that we can do from?
Yeah. Yep. And that definitely is something that we can do, because we're doing it, but we're obviously have a lack of capacity, right? Our fire departments, they're all volunteer. These guys have day jobs. They're working hard to just keep afloat the fire department, but then we add on these extra duties of helping their residents become more prepared for wildfire, and that's a lot. So this is something that's being addressed, but it needs assistance. We've got wildfire response, local workforce capacity for response, community interface with incident management teams. our volunteer fire departments work with that. Our Bitterroot National Forest does. The Bitterroot National Forest has the primary direct fire authority within Ravalli County outside of private lands. And so they are the primary for most of our wildfire response, and those VFDs are definitely helping them and supporting them, and also attacking it in some of the interface areas. And so this is being addressed. Yeah. Right. We have a big chunk of no man's land. And that needs to be addressed too. That is a big issue. We have a chunk of land with a lot of homes in it that are not in any fire district, right? So they don't have coverage. They're not paying taxes to support a fire district, but they are still making 911 calls. They are still a potential risk for wildfire, right? That would call resources. And so we do have a big issue there. So yeah, so we can put no man's land in there.
One quick question. So,
Yeah.
Is a fire district, do they in some way co-locate with the city boundaries? Or who's to say what is and is not in the fire?
Well, those districts are outlined and it's a tax base boundary. I don't know essentially what set them up, but it is tax base, right? And so those areas probably way back when they were set up, probably were not habituated. They didn't have homes in them.
Right. But somebody is responsible for drawing that map. There's a
Right.
map that
Right.
says, this is Victory Fire District, this is Hamilton. Who draws that map?
I don't know. It's
Well,
it would be
the fire
county.
district was established through the county, and then as development occurs, then we're encouraging people who are not included within that fire district boundary to annex into the district. But that's a voluntary thing. We can't force them to do that without the county commissioners getting in the act. So that's why we end up with these islands that are either under the Bitterroot National Forest, or they're not within our taxing district. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't respond, but we don't have the benefit of tax revenue from those property owners unless they go through the process of annexing.
How
Probably
strange.
what they don't understand is that if you're in no man's land, house catches on fire, and somebody's district catches on fire, we need to leave that whole district. So we're just doing you a favor.
Right.
Right.
But
They don't
you would
have
never
to
do that.
respond.
Oh, yeah.
You would leave a fire?
You wouldn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you're in the district, and he's not in the district, who's gonna sue me for not showing up? There's nothing he can do about
But
it.
if he's not in the district and he's on fire, he's
That's
gonna
his
catch,
problem.
he's gonna catch your neighbor who is in the district
Yeah,
on
but,
fire.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's a whole nother issue. But what I'm
right,
saying
I'm
is
just,
our
it's
primary-
complicated.
It's just like us going to help the state or the feds. We can do that, but our primary service is to our district first. If we have extra resources, then we can volunteer to help, but we have to cover our district.
So have you ever found yourself in that situation where you were on a fire and had to demob to
We
another
haven't
fire?
had to demob, but we've had to stretch
Stretch
ourselves out and
ourselves,
go do
spread resources.
Go do
Uh-huh.
it.
Right. So it definitely goes here
Yeah,
into safety of response, but it's obviously an issue, right? Maybe that's not something we can deal with, but maybe it is.
I think at some point we need to deal with it because it make it, that whole thing a lot easier. You get
Right.
rid of one more problem that you're trying to
Right.
facilitate through.
Well, I think this next one is how we deal with it. This next one, plans and regulations.
Yeah.
In here, we've got spatial fire planning, WUI codes and ordinances, community wildfire protection plans. Remember, we talked about the CWPP, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, that was last signed in the Bitterroot in 2006. That's our guiding,
2006.
that's our guiding community wildfire guideline or document. And so in this identifies all the goals for dealing with WUI and fire in the WUI. And that needs updated because 2006 is way too long. And in that, you identify all the goals that have to do with your residents, your communities, and wildfire. And one of those could be addressing fire districts and that no man's land. You can put that into a CWPP. That's definitely a valid item to go in there. You can put a lot of the items we're talking about into here. And so this is something that Bitterroot RC&D, so Byron, who has been here to all the other meetings, he was pivotal in creating that initial CWPP. But it needs updating, but he can't do it alone. And it definitely needs a collaborative group to put it in place. So here's a chunk that definitely we could be involved in. Usually it is a collaborative group that involves community members, business members, fire professionals, any agency that has a finger in wildfire should be involved. And it's a very much an interagency and broad scaled group that would address this. That's this council. Landscape treatments, fuel breaks, prescribed fires.
Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no,
but
you're okay.
Just kind of going back to CWPP.
Yep.
So this is Bitter Forest wide, or this is community by community, or?
So actually a CWPP can be any geographic area. You can have a neighborhood
But
that
the one
has
that,
a CWPP, but our current one is county level.
oh,
But
okay,
it's called the Bitterroot RC&D, or I'm sorry, the Bitterroot Community Wildfire Protection Plan.
right.
But it covers the whole Ravalli County. So it's a county
Commissioners
level.
wouldn't sign, that's what happened.
It
It's
was,
real simple. County commissioners wouldn't sign,
Right.
that's what happened.
They would not sign it?
they did an update in 2009, I think it was, and they had a WUI map. So a map of our wildland urban interface areas. And the commissioners at that time did not accept that map. They disagreed with it. And so they would not sign that updated CWPP. So when you do a CWPP, it's meant to be a living document. It's
Right.
not meant to be put on the shelf, don't use it. It often is treated that way, but it's not meant to be. It's supposed to be living and it's supposed to be updated, especially as your conditions change. As you get an influx of people moving into your area, you need to be updating your CWPP. And so we are definitely way outdated. Even if we had our 2009 update, it would be out of date. And so no matter what, this needs to be done. Now, one thing that's a benefit of having a CWPP is you have grant writing power. Many grants,
Right,
if
okay,
you don't have a CWPP, they're not going to provide you funding because you don't have that driving factor, that driving document guiding your policies and your projects.
so lack of a CWPP means
Lack of money,
you don't get funding, or it's difficult to get funding.
yes.
So what are the other implications of the commissioners not signing this? Is there I mean, is there like state funding that doesn't flow through? Is there federal funding that
There-
doesn't flow through? Is there?
It definitely, it just opens the door. It doesn't, it doesn't always close doors. But let's just say it keeps some doors closed.
Looks like they're not all.
Yeah, yeah, or you're not addressing your backyard. You're not addressing the issues there.
Because that's the plan of what happens. if you don't-
Right.
Right.
This is meant to be the guide, and we have it, there's a link to it on our website. The fireintheroot.org, just go there. There'll be a link to that. You also can just go to the DNRC. If you Google DNRC, CWPP, those two words, you'll
Those-
have a list. We have a page that has all.
Those 8 letters.
We'll have a list of all the CWPPs for every county in Montana, and the Ravalli counties is in.
So there, just one last question, and I'll quit.
No, it's all right, good questions.
So commissioners not signing this, if the commissioners sign this, is this legal, provide any, any legal basis for action? Does it provide different groups with authorities that they do not have without
Yeah,
Dan Holt signing it, or, I mean,
good question. It does not have enforcement power. So the sheriff is not gonna show up to a community
Yeah.
store and say, you guys did not do your defensible space project this month. You can't, there's no enforcement, but what it does provide is a responsibility and accountability. Because in a good CWPP, there are a list of projects, you've got a list of goals, you have a list of projects to accomplish those goals, and you have a timeline, and you have who is responsible, who is going to do those. And so you have that accountability, and that document provides those agencies with that guiding directive to do that, but also that accountability. Their name is in that, and they all sign. It's not just the commissioners. All the fire department chiefs, all the fire district chiefs sign, the commissioners sign, the DNRC signs, the Forest Service signs. It's a binding document in that. It's like we're pledging to do that.
okay, and just one more question. What about insurance companies? Does somebody somehow get better insurance rates if there is a CWPP in place that everybody has signed on and has agreed that, yeah, this is how we're going to deal with WUI, this is how we're going to deal with this, and
So
Not
that's basically why the county wouldn't sign it. I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
That-
go for
That's
it.
why they didn't want to sign it, because what they said is if you designate this fully, the insurance companies aren't going to insure this. people. Guess what? The insurance companies really don't care about our WUI map. They're already doing their own thing.
right.
So to give you an example, one of my neighbors had too many trees around his place. And somebody in his insurance company got on Google Earth and flew it. And they said, sorry, we're not renewing your insurance. And he said, why? And he said, because you need to pay. He says, I can take care of that. So he logged his place and the insurance company was happy.
Right.
And so that, they don't understand that it's beyond that. It's just like the insurance companies looking at our ratings. They don't look at that anymore. They look at a whole bunch of other things now. They will call fire chief and ask you, what capacity do you have and where's the water sources? But that stuff, that's the trouble. We've kind of passed that. The insurance companies have already figured out there's technology here.
Yeah.
This is more for what she talked about. Everybody, you're trying to get 13 fire districts, U.S. Forest Service, the state of Montana, and Valley County, all to get in one direction.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And it is possible, like we can do it. We did it before, but we need to do it
And
again.
we still have one. It's just that it's the old. we
Right.
never got it updated. So
Right.
because it hasn't been updated, we're still.
That's our guiding document.
the one that we do.
And it was well done. Byron and his group did a great job. There's a lot of really good goals that still hold true today. And so what is nice is that we aren't starting from scratch. You don't. If you have a CWPP in place, you just update it. So it's a remodel and we can handle that. It's not going from scratch. But your question on insurance, often that comes in here too, that home hardening, the individual home owner doing the proper steps to make sure that their home is the best prepared that it can be for a wildfire. And that's it definitely an evolving situation with insurance. And
In fact, there was, what, this spring, or was it last year, we had an insurance company that wanted one of these assessments done before they would go to insure the home.
yeah,
That was this spring.
that was a spring. Yeah.
So they're getting smart.
Yeah.
I got another one here.
Right. And so, and it's usually, in Montana, our insurance situation is fairly stable. And it's not widespread, the demand for assessments, right? It isn't like across the board. But in other states it is. And so it's coming our way. Like it's going to be here. So let's address it instead of just hide away and pretend it might not come. It'll come. And it's coming with a lot of people that have out of state insurance companies who are like, I'm not doing that. You know, if you've got a tree in the middle of your porch, take that down and then maybe we'll talk. So, yeah. And those were great prices.
I don't know.
Yeah, right, no, that's right.
Who you
Landscape
talking?
treatments I was going on before, fuel breaks, prescribed fire thinning. We do have these projects going on. We had Matt Young and Thayer Jacques talking to us last meeting about those Good Neighbor Authority projects that we're doing, the cross-boundary work on state and federal government and trying to reach cross-boundary even into private homeowners and creating large landscape level work. And we saw the plans, the Bitterroot Buck plans, the Sapphire Front. We saw that there's a lot of plans for reducing hazardous fuels and doing thinning. And that it's going to be a long-term project and it's a slow haul because there's a lot of hoops that they have to jump through and public acceptance to get it done too. These are being done. Is this something that we can do? Maybe not. Is this something we can help and support? You bet. You bet. And we can get that information out and support them on that. Community engagement. Oop. Oh, do I set that? Or is that? Ah! Bridget, I need you. That's kind of fun. Okay. Community engagement, wildfire preparedness activities or campaigns, getting neighborhood ambassadors, those spark plugs in neighborhoods that get their whole community energized. Community meetings and events. Community engagement, fire in the root, and our volunteer fire departments are definitely active in this. But we need help, obviously. There's just a few of us and it's a big county. Is this something we can help with? You bet. That's definite. And we've heard input that that's an area you really would like to be active in. Public health, social and mental health services, smoke preparedness. Ravalli County Public Health definitely deals with this and smoke issues. Our OEM, our Office of Emergency Management, is really good about getting information out on smoke and smoke preparedness and how to deal with that. And so there are entities here addressing this. Is this something we can help with? Yeah, maybe not the science necessarily. Can we get the word out? Don't touch it. Can we get the word out about this? You bet. Through community engagement. We can definitely help. And we can learn about more issues from here, especially if public health is represented in the council. We can find how we can weave this information into other things we do. Wildfire recovery. This is something that is often forgotten. And I bet a lot of our roaring lion survivors can attest to the importance of this. Is that there's a lot of after effects from a fire. And there needs to be planning so that if the next roaring lion, when the next roaring lion comes, we have things in place to deal with it. Long-term recovery planning, post-fire flooding and erosion, business resiliency, mental health issues. I have friends that lost homes to fire, one in the Roaring Lion. PTSD is something that she still deals with today from that. There's a lot of issues that go beyond just those logistical items. Is this something we can help with? You bet. You bet. Even if it's to energize some of the agencies that might deal with this to make sure we have an updated plan. Can this go in here? Yes. Our CWPP can have projects that address that. Colorado has what they call a post-fire playbook that they just came out with. And it is an awesome resource for after the fire. And it has everything in it that a homeowner needs to know if they've been affected by fire. If they've lost a home or their property's been damaged, here's who you call. Here's a website for this information. This is what you need to do. This is the first thing you need to do. This is what you don't need to worry about. This is who you call for counseling. So that's something that we can help with. So there's a lot of things that are being addressed in Ravalli County. We see a lot of lines. But we also, as I've talked, almost every one of them, I've said, can we help? Yes, because capacity is a huge limiting factor anywhere, but especially in Ravalli County. A lot of things are volunteer driven. So where do we as a council want to focus? Where do we, are there one or two areas in here that we want to focus? Ooh, and I forgot a really major one. What's missing from here? What's missing from here?
Sort of in there, but.
We'll lump it into here because it should be spelled out. You are correct. But that's what they're meaning is kind of that information and education, but they house it as community engagement because the best way to educate is to engage. Just handing a brochure doesn't make a difference. Handing a brochure, shaking a hand, looking somebody in the eye and talking to them makes a lot more of a difference. So that engagement is key. What is missing? Scott, what's missing? How are we gonna afford to do anything? I do not have deep pockets. I don't have any pockets, actually. They're fake.
You
So-
mentioned the public health.
Yeah,
They meet once a month on second Tuesdays at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. None of this for a fire issue or matter comes up. Maybe it's something that try to get on the agenda at least one meeting, get them aware.
well, they came. Remember, we've invited them. And we had the Daily Hospital, the representative from the Daily Hospital come to 2 meetings ago. Yeah,
You be going to their meeting.
Right.
It was a public health meeting.
I agree, but even better, have them be a member. So they're a constant voice in our,
That's where I'm saying, get them involved, or maybe at least one member of that. The county commission on that board of health also.
right, yeah. Yep.
He was also a member of the town fire department.
So if this is one of our focus areas, that, here's the thing, we can't do all of it.
But that
We
just
can't
gets-
do all of it, so
they
we
just
need
limit our
to,
resources that we need involved.
right. Right. So maybe that's, but Mike, that actually could be a focus area in itself.
Sure.
Recruitment.
Yep.
Right? Doesn't have to be, because that affects all of these. That affects our ability, right? We are stretched thin. There isn't a mighty army. We are mighty, but we're not a mighty army in numbers. And so maybe recruitment is one of the things we want to focus on. You bet.
Trying to get people, I try and had a new realtor orientation class I taught last week. Put out there, we need people.
Right.
Come to me, it gives this time at this place.
It is the classic problem. Our volunteer fire departments,
That really.
they're saving
that
lives,
doesn't-
they're
doesn't
saving
help.
homes, yeah. And they are struggling to recruit, right? I mean, you guys, welcome.
But even if you had funded, you couldn't hire anybody, but all the businesses are now the county.
Even Taco Bell can't get anybody, so yeah, good point. But, okay, so recruitment, let's put that up here, floating in the world of possibilities for focus areas. But funding, I mean, just to be practical, we can't do a lot without funding. And the DNRC and the Forest Service is not gonna foot the bill for everything. We have pockets, but we don't have really deep pockets, and our pockets come and go. And, you know, one of our goals in the very beginning, when we were trying to get funding for this, was to get a coordinator to drive this, because we all of us have day jobs and other things that we are giving 100% focus to. And so for this council to really have a good shot, we need somebody whose focus is the council to drive it and to make sure that our bases are covered. And so, and to make sure that we have money to support any of these focus areas that we want to put attention to. It's the way of life. We've got to have funding.
But I
So-
think, Kristen, if you actually take a project, whatever, I mean, you pick one wheel and say, we're gonna work on this. Then there are some people around here that can help you write a grant, but, and we can go to the communities. But until we have something that we can say, this is what we want the money for, this is our specific purpose, people aren't gonna open up. They open up when they see a project that they wanna get involved in, that's one thing. I
Right.
think we're gonna have to find a project to get started on before we can actually go after that whole funding.
Right. Well, and maybe, like, this is my pet thing here, is we actually do have funding for this one. So there's $11,000 that the DNRC has for counties that are ready to update their CWPP and need to, but we need to have a structure in place to do that. We need to have a collaborative group in place, ready to do it. And so there is funding for this, and this opens the door to other funding. And this also identifies all those projects that we then can go out to communities and say,
What, so that's 11,000 for the whole state, or that's?
no, for
11,000?
the county. So they have a chunk of funding broken up to where they've identified, I can't remember how many counties, they've identified, I think, like 10 or 11 counties that have outdated CWPPs. They got enough funding to cover 11,000 for each county,
Uh-huh.
but they aren't going to award it if the county is not ready to do the CWPP, and they're awarding it in yearly chunks. So if the counties that are most ready to update their CWPP will get it in 2022. Then the next county is there.
So does that mean you have to have an organized set of like bylaws and organized structure as a part of it, or do you just enjoy that?
You
Basically,
need-
identify mission statement goals.
Yeah, you just need to have, it doesn't have to be a 501c3 organized group, but you need to have a CWPP task force group in place to work on it. And it needs to be collaborative. It should not just be a bunch of fire professionals or a bunch of county officials working on this. So,
I think
So,
we're
yeah.
Valley County's ready.
I,
I think we're Valley County's ready. We worked on like 2 years ago, Derek, trying to put together a grant for like Ken Waters to start doing some of that stuff. Right, and the commissioners were interested in that. They were
Right.
interested in backing up and supporting us. So I think things have changed enough in that world that probably we can get that done. It's just gonna
I think you're right. I think Ravalli County just needs somebody to drive it.
How do you justify to the, so the DNRC has this tranche of money for these, is it DNRC, is that right?
It's DNRC, but it's from a grant that we received.
Okay,
So-
okay. So how do you make the assessment that says, oh yeah, these guys are ready to go? Let's, we'll
I don't
move
know
the,
how they're gonna do it. We probably are gonna have to pitch and say, this is our group. This is what the group it consists of, and we are ready to go. Here's our plans. One thing that I have heard, but I have not confirmed, is that they would like to have it done by a contracted individual that is informed by a collaborative group. So they are looking for a group that won't have to do it all themselves, that will contract the work, like the actual writing of the CWPP and a lot of the research, that can be done by a contracted, and they're encouraging that.
so
But they
that, so
want it
that's how they,
informed by a collaborative group.
so that's how they see, that's a valuable, they're happy to spend their $11,000 on hiring a consultant.
Right, well,
It is-
it actually makes a lot of sense, because then you have consistency.
Yeah.
Then you're making sure that all the, because there's a lot of CWPPs out there that don't have all the necessary items in it, or that are just written so that they can say they have a CWPP. It doesn't have any timeline, it doesn't have any responsibility or accountability in it. And so if you have an approved contractor, because I'm sure they would say, here's a list of approved contractors.
You are they though, aren't you? I mean, you're DNRC.
I am DNRC, but DNRC is a lot of people. I'm with the Southwestern Land Office.
Okay.
This would be out of our bureau, which is the statewide
Oh, okay.
kind of division.
Figure it out.
Yes, and so they who received the funds get to decide.
Is the language of that grant that they've been awarded available?
Not yet, well, the grant and that information probably is all public information. I believe it was a WUI, Western State Governor's Grant. So if you just type that in, I'm pretty sure you can see most, if not all of those who were awarded the grants. But when you're awarded those, you often have to go through a lot of steps to prove that you have everything in place to receive the money. And so I think they're probably in that process of making sure they have all of that in place. And one of the parts of that was making sure that data is available on a county level, if not finer, for counties to use. So all of the wildfire risk structure ignitability, all that kind of data. They want it to be available for counties to use to create those CWPPs. And I think that's where they're also working. Like the state has some work to do to make sure all that data is available at the county level before they can even award it.
Right, so
So-
they may not be ready to.
No, I don't think they are, because I have not received the final, Kristen, we have money for sure available. Do you have any counties that are, I've been given the heads up that this money is there and that it's gonna be coming.
What's the time frame on something like that? Like, once they tell you the money is there, how long? do we have?
Well, I think, here's the thing that Rivali has going for it. We're the big red thumb. Any wildfire risk map you look at of the state of Montana, Rivali sticks out. We have the highest risk of any county in Montana. If we have any sort of drive, any sort of base that is willing to take this on and commit to doing a CWPP, I can almost promise you, we will get the funding. We are the greatest risk, and they know that, and they want to help. And so we just have to have some sort of driving structure in place that is collaborative, that is dedicated, that's not gonna fizzle.
Right.
So, and we have to be willing to work their way. So we would have to be willing, if they make that decree, to work with a consultant. I would love to work with a consultant. These people do it all the time. They're good at it. And they know how to take our information and our local input and put it into what is needed for opening doors to grants and for getting work done on the grant. And so it's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. But we won't have a problem if we're organized and committed and we have that drive. Yeah.
Somebody that's put together a CWP recently.
Mineral County did just do theirs. They updated theirs. I'm not 100% happy with it though. So the Missoula counties is pretty good, and theirs was in 2018. I
I
think.
just wondered if you could get somebody that was in the driving force of all that to come down and explain to everybody what all they went through.
Right.
on that, Because, I, for one, I don't know about anybody else, I'm not really sure what all is going to be involved with that. So maybe if somebody can maybe give you
Right.
just a big picture of this is kind of what you're looking at. you
Yep.
should have an idea.
So we definitely could do that. I know there's a group called the Fire Adaptive Montana Learning Network. And both Anna and I are a part of that. And we share across Montana. It's practitioners that are concerned about creating fire adapted communities and more fire adapted residents. We share. It's just sharing information. And one of the individuals on that learning network is a consultant that does CWPPs. That's what she does. So she would be a great individual. I definitely could reach out to Missoula County and find, maybe Adrian Beck would be willing to just, do a Q&A sort of thing with us, or somebody involved with that. Sure, that's something, especially if this is one of our focus areas, we definitely could do that. If it's not a focus area, then we don't want to go that route, but it should be. So, yeah.
Well, Chris, I think in addition to the experience of the expert that Scott referring to, that's mentioned this before, don't we really need to identify the composition of this task force? I mean, isn't that kind of
That's the
the
council.
starting point?
You bet.
So-
That's our council, right? Do we have everybody we need at the table? Right. But that's a question to ask if this is a focus area we're choosing to do.
It seems to me that one of the entities we're missing is the county commission.
Right. And so here's our
And without
thoughts.
that,
Right.
we're not gonna get very far, I don't
Probably
think.
the best you're gonna get there
I know. But here's what I'm thinking,
Well-
John. I'm thinking we've got to push the cart forward and they've got to see that that cart is moving. And once they see that that cart is moving, that we're not stopping, we're not giving up, maybe we'll get, with our momentum, we'll get more joining the group.
Well, I would think too that with the CWPP, that's, the old one, the 2006, then even the potentially updated 2009,
Nine, yeah.
that plan has some good basic structure
Yeah,
that a consultant, I think, could take a look at that and give us some direction on how where we need to focus to
yes,
create an updated, acceptable CWPP.
right,
Because without that,
Right.
the big advantage of CWPP is securing future funding that we can't even compete for right now because we're not even square one.
right,
But it's beyond that, it's come up with a plan first.
right.
I mean,
Well,
you gotta figure out what you're gonna do, and then you worry about your funding.
Right,
Well,
well,
yeah, I know,
it's
but-
both, it's both, and really this is a key to that, but you're right. We have that CWPP already, we're not creating it from scratch, so
Right.
and that's the first step, like, our first step is this gonna be an area of focus? Is this gonna be a committee? Is this something that we want our council to focus on? If it is, then we begin to identify, what do we need to do? Well, one of the first steps is probably reaching out to the county commissioners. Because that is a great point. If they're not interested at all, then we probably are not gonna get the funding. Because that might be a question that the DNRC asks is, all right, is your county on board? Just a checkbox, is your county on board? County commissioners on board? And if we can't check that, that might kick us out already, and we need their signature.
The
So,
reason it didn't get approved in 2009 was the commissioners did not approve the map.
Right.
Isn't that a requirement of the CWP?
yes, you have to identify your wildland urban interface areas. But here's the thing, it's a different climate. As Scott was saying, they're different commissioners. And there definitely is more acceptance of our situation. And the fact that we need to identify our interface.
Yeah.
And they probably do realize, like Scott was saying, the insurance is way ahead. It isn't a matter of
But it
liability.
does sound like the map is a political issue.
They always are.
So we probably need to know what the policy, what the political issues are and anticipate that before we go to the commission.
You
We
bet,
know they're new commissions.
right.
Are they aware of this process in place? Is that a conversation that happened?
Of what? Of the funding?
This entity is.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Moving forward.
Right, so when we first got going with the idea of the Wildfire Council and transforming our fire and the outreach campaign into a wildfire council, we wanted to get funding to secure that coordinator and to get funding for all these projects that we had already identified as needs. Capacity for our local fire departments, we wanted to get funding for them to go out and do more home assessments for secure people. Anyways, we pitched it to the commissioners for a letter of support to add in our funding package in our application. So they were aware of both our search for funding, but also that we were taking this this outreach campaign and trying to create a wildfire council with it. So they know of it. They've been apprised of it. They get our emails, our updates. And so they are probably watching The fire warden gets that information as well. Eric Hoover is the Office of Emergency Management, and he's a huge supporter of the council. And he just had another meeting, or he would be here tonight. He's been to all the other meetings. And he definitely is letting the commissioners know. So they know, you know,
Well, I'd like to propose an agenda item then for our next meeting. Is that, you know, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Rick Donovan. And so what I can do is I'll get the existing community wildfire protection plan, the CWPP, that the DNRC and RCD&D and dozens of other letters have worked on. I'll take a look at that, kind of decompose it, look at that and compare it to, what did you say that Mineral County has updated theirs?
yeah, I would
And
look at
Missoula-
Missoula counties, look at Missoula
And
counties.
well, I'll look at both of them, Mineral County and Missoula, and see what's there, you know, see what's there,
Sure.
see what's missing and.
I would say let's, as a group, because we gotta keep moving. But we need to identify this as a focus area. If we want, like, that's what we need to do tonight. Because if we want action, if we want to start moving on something, we need to identify it as a priority area. And we need to say, okay, we are gonna put focus here. We need a committee working on this. We need to focus on here. We need a committee working on this, right?
I think you need to focus on that, because if you start to look at your other things, that plan ties into like the hazard mitigation, and
Right.
landscape treatments and
All
all
of
of that. It
this
kinda
is in it.
ties. And so if you put the plan together, then you can start working on some of that other stuff, because it will start giving you some direction. So when you're working on whatever piece, you've already done it and said, this is where we want to get with this.
Right.
So that piece, now you know kind of where you're supposed to be going.
Yeah, it actually, so go home and in the next couple of days or weeks, look again at that Bitterroot, at the Bitterroot CWPP. And you'll see almost every one of these spots addressed in projects in that. Scott's 100% correct. It's all in there. There's community education. There's, I think there's even one on public health. There might not be wildfire recovery, but there's evacuation, there's mitigation, there's wildfire response. So yes, you're 100% correct. And we could just do that if we just want to focus here. But we also were hearing that people want to get going and they want to be doing something, and we want you to be able to go do something and get that action as well, because this is a lot of planning. It'll be a lot of what we were kind of doing before, identifying goals, going over data, looking at risk, identifying target and priority areas. So that if you might get a little frustrated because it's not a lot of out in the community engagement. So I would suggest we definitely identify this as a focus area, because Scott's right, it incorporates everything else. But also we heard a lot of this, right? We've heard a lot of frustration because many are concerned we're not doing enough of this. And we are doing a lot of that, but maybe not at the level that it needs to be done in Ravalli County. So Bridget had already highlighted that because we had heard that. So maybe that's a focus area. We heard a lot of desire for those assessments, right? We need to be doing more assessments and getting out there and doing those. I don't disagree. I think we need to figure out a way to do lots and really take a bite out of that 16,000. So
Is there anybody that has interest in any of those specific spots that are willing to rate? my question for Kristen is, in our group right now or on Zoom, is there anybody right here, right now that has interest in any of these certain spots that's willing to commit some time in that specific, community engagement area, whatever it may be, or that committee that we're looking at doing? So if you don't mind,
Yeah,
I mean, if we want to get some boots on the ground and start working in a direction, we'd love to plug people in where they're already motivated.
right.
So,
And can I just put a plug in here?
Yes,
for
please.
The Valley County Fair is next month. And we will have the fire prevention trailer there, so if there's folks that wanna come out and help, that's a great way to engage with the public and also get the word out on, mitigation efforts and, engaging with people, so.
Yeah. We can have
If
this
people
on.
don't wanna be a leader of the committee, but want to be out there and, help support, there's definitely opportunities. I apologize for the past.
so, and I don't mean to interrupt Kristen, but she just did an amazing, 30, 45-minute PSA
An hour.
that is going to be awesome on our website as far as bringing us all up to speed to where we're at and what the big picture is and how we need to get there. But while we're getting there, we're still trying to coordinate and have our organization do stuff right here, right now, right? So if the grant's 6 months out, what are we going to do for 6 months? Well, some people will be working on that grant, but if there's people that want to do the community engagement or the residential mitigation stuff, that's, hey, we're not here to slow anybody down. We're here to enable you to make sure that we can get that done too. So,
We have a fair, there's a Celtic festival coming up. on this,
Yep.
August 19th on Thursday at 4:30 p.m. till 6:30 p.m. The Better County Board of Realtors, their office on North Fourth is hosting a business after hours through the Chamber of Commerce. That might be a place to maybe get information out to these business owners.
sure.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Mike, if you don't mind, hold that thought though, because what I'd like to see is if we can get people, maybe you might be the one interested in presenting, but if we have people right here that want to plug in, we get them plugged in and then we'll see what we have to put for resources towards that too. But I saw,
But at least flyers.
sure, and I agree. But, I just had a couple of hands up. I just didn't want to lose that momentum on those folks. Like Judy, you put your hand up. Was there something specifically that you were really interested in?
Well, community engagement and helping people understand the need for landscape treatments on their own. Those are two areas that are really my passion.
Awesome. We'll get you plugged in that regard. And would you be willing to head up a committee in that regard, or do you want to just be more hands and feet in the meantime?
Either one.
Okay, so I'm gonna put you down as a potential committee leader, if that's okay.
Well, and maybe what we do is we just, it's, what are the areas that we want to focus on?
Mhm.
And then those of you who are engaged in those focus areas, we try and have either a separate meeting or do sort of a breakout session where you start to generate your goals and project ideas, and then how you're gonna implement it. We have a lot of events, which Bridget mentioned, and we want to add that too. We will be at Apple Days. And so there are a lot of events. There's just limited people. So how to choose which events to go to, what are you gonna get your biggest bang for your buck? That's what we have to do all the time. What's the biggest bang for our buck? Because we don't have a lot of bucks. So, that group kind of decides that, then comes back to the council and pitches it. And it might not be that there's any leader. Maybe the group works dynamically just without one, but maybe leave it to the group to figure out that internal dynamic. But I think tonight we need to figure out at least, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 focus areas. Bridget put those 2 because we've heard them. That doesn't mean those have to be the ones, but, and then, well, yeah, and I do think I think updating a CWPP is actually not a project. It should be its own focus area.
But if there's people that are interested in the CWPP being on that group, I know that you are. Is there anybody else that's interested in that? Scott, Mike? John? And what's your name?
Yeah.
Brandon. Okay.
Yeah. And that's it. It's a
That's awesome.
voice, you know, it's being a part. It doesn't mean you're carrying it.
And, you know, it's just having the people that are willing to invest the time, because it is an investment, and we certainly value that. We just want to make sure that the people that want to be plugged into that group is plugged in, and those people that don't necessarily, we find the right spot for them to. So. Brandon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to, I guess, just kind of touch on it. I've been working with some of our companies in regards to the home assessments. And Bridget came and presented. I gathered some underwriters together, some of our marketing reps for some of the companies that I write with. And we are working through that assessment plan. We use my house as an example. Did an assessment of that, and we're working on integrating that into eligibility and discounts and stuff like that when it comes to homeowners insurance, and trying to figure out a way to, I guess, give that assessment some bite. And so that's, I guess that kind of, that piece of the pie, I guess, is a pretty intimate relationship with trying to make sure that that stuff is getting done. Because we are finding it, say, insurance companies that we're operating by our own maps now,
Yeah.
doing our own thing. And it's making some of our jobs more difficult.
Right.
When we don't have the data to support us in trying to place a particular home. Just this last week, we had that one line that's between Victor and River because of fire line score, and they won't budge.
Have you looked at,
What
or are
is
you
that?
familiar with Wildfire Partners? That program out of Boulder, Colorado. Wildfire Partners, Google Wildfire Partners. It's an insurance, it's a county level program that works with most major insurance companies. And they have a certification process that they have an agreement with those insurance companies that they assess, if they certify a home through their assessment process and the homeowner agrees to the assessment, does the recommended mitigation, then they are assured coverage. But there's a lot of stipulations in there, but it's a program that a lot of places are starting to model. Not that it's something that we have to do here, but just as you guys are starting to really find your footing in this, that might be something to look at, because it's a way that fire professionals and insurance companies have started to work together and to combine both of their bases of knowledge. And
The result of one of the projects that we're, I guess, trying to work with in that is wildfire defense systems. Insurance companies utilize them to do structure protection, specifically for the assets that they insure within the activation area or as the fire approaches on those in those spaces. And our approach to it was maybe wildfire defense system is partnered in helping complete those assessments. Then they will also have, they'll have data on the homes that are within those areas to maybe help them prioritize resources.
yeah,
When you said that there's a house between Victor and the river that they can't build their house or they can't buy the house,
We can't insure it.
they can't insure it.
can't
They
insure it.
get insurance.
just nobody will insure.
There's one company, they're rating their fire line scoring in so tight. that we couldn't do it. So
Take some new losses.
Yeah. Well, I tell
What's
you
that?
what, that's a huge thing is the
Oh, yeah,
cost
right.
to do those assessments.
Yeah, that was one thing that Bridget.
Yeah, so if there is a way we can,
And speaking of those assessments, I have another question. She came out and did an assessment on my home as well, and it took quite a while because of the grading that she had to do on different areas. She had to assess how many feet things were away.
yeah,
And she was asking their opinion before they came up with an answer. Is there a way to streamline that particular assessment, or are we stuck with that?
that's
assessment?
actually the short form. And my favorite is personally the long form. And Bridget learned with me too, you know, I take a lot of time because I'm overly thorough, maybe, or John knows.
The reason I'm asking is we could potentially get more volunteers to go out and do
Yeah.
assessments if it wasn't so difficult and time consuming, we could get a whole lot of those homes done.
Well, how long did it take? It should just take about an hour to an hour and a half.
Yeah, it was an hour and a half.
Okay.
That was pretty.
You
long.
thought it was too much. Well, see, that's great input. Because to me, like I want to make sure I don't miss anything because it's on my shoulders. If I do, it's my job to point out every potential vulnerability
Right.
in that home and property. And I don't want to miss anything. And I want to communicate why it's important.
Right.
But if the public is like, this is taking too long, and they phased me out a half an hour
Because I
ago.
considered maybe I would be willing to go out and volunteer to help do assessments, but it looks like she would have to be training people for a week to do an assessment.
Even if you did a quick one, you're still looking at about 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's super good.
And that still doesn't include drive time.
So
Yeah.
even an hour, I'm talking about.
I jump in for a second.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I do just want to add to that a little bit. It has been shown that's that community engagement key, honestly. That is the time where we can really get the most important keys across to community members. Because honestly, at those community events, people aren't there to sit, for me to talk 10, 20 minutes about all the things that they need to do to their property. So honestly, I think taking the time to really make sure people understand what they need to do to protect their homes and property, it's truly worth the time. And that's where it makes the most difference. People really start to see and realize what they have and what they haven't done on their property. So it does take a little bit of time, but that, in my opinion, and I think according to research, it is what motivates people most often to actually do mitigation work versus just passing out the pamphlets at community events. It does take a lot of time, but truly, I think it's worth the investment if it gets that homeowner and that property owner to get the mitigation work done. Because without that, there's no guarantee that someone's going to take whatever you said in those a minute or in the pamphlets and go home and do all that work. So that's just something to take into consideration, what's most effective to get people doing the mitigation work.
Criticizing the assessment, it was well done. I'm just saying for people, we're so stretched for people to. do
To help
the
and do it.
assessments. If we could make it simple enough that you could get all the data you needed for insurance companies and still be able to figure it out and get something to volunteers after a couple of hours of training. I think we could get some people to volunteer to do
Right.
the assessment.
Yeah.
Well, you better do a 30-minute assessment than no assessment at all. So if we only have a grant position for 6 more months, it's at least something out there. I do understand the magnitude of going in depth, but maybe there's a happy medium somewhere that we could balance out.
Well, there's a different option, actually. There's something called a rapid assessment. And the idea of a rapid assessment is not the engagement. but actually the actual data, and then opening the door for the homeowner. And so, and I'm supposed to do this in my spotlight video, which I still haven't done yet, but I will be doing it. But there is a program that you you identify a target community, say 400, 1,000 community. You send them a letter saying, we're going to be assessing your home. So if you see fire engines out front, or if you see a DNR truck out front, they're not coming onto your property, but they're looking at it for wildfire risk. You do 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes per assessment. You're basically looking at from the driveway and doing a really quick assessment of the home. You do all 400 of them. Then you create a rating system that's already in place for these rapid assessments. You then send those postcards to the homeowner saying, we rated your home at a high risk to wildfire, and here's why. Here's also a survey that we'd love you to do so you can respond to our rating and give us some information. And if you would like us to come and walk around your home, here is our contact information so we can do a more thorough job. It opens the door to it, but that is a great way to get a lot of risk assessments done and open the door to it, because it's been shown if you let people know what their risk is, and either they're unaware or they disagree with it, they're gonna start communicating with you, and it opens that door. And plus, you're getting data too. You're learning what your community's looking like by doing that. And so that is another option. It's an approach, and there's a group that specializes in it, but you need volunteers to do that. And it's short commitment, it's easy training. And that is a potential, and it's a great way to get a lot
Yeah,
of
that all
assessments done.
sounds good, and don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed, I really liked the personal assessment.
It's just volunteers, that's a lot of time to do.
Yeah, we just asking if there's a way to make it a little more user friendly to the person. That's a volunteer that says, I'd like to help out with home assessment.
So our home assessment, the data is standardized. It's used across Montana. So all of that data, you can't skimp on it and have the risk rating come out correctly.
And that's on your website?
No, that's what the fire professionals, it's an assessment that we provide for free. But
The form is on.
Yeah.
there and the rest of it.
do we have the form on it? The short form? Okay, so we might have it on our website. We have everything on the website, because Anna said that. So you have to use that form and put that data in. You do not have to take that long. You could do it very quickly. It's just, as Bridget said, it's really valuable time.
It is,
But-
I don't
but yeah.
disagree at all.
If that is a limiting factor to getting boots on the ground out there doing assessments, then sure. There is a way to do it faster. Yeah,
So one of the things I heard her saying with the training, and if I'm not mistaken, Bridget said she could do a training session to do this in like 4 hours. I haven't been on a bunch of assessments, but the assessments I've been on have averaged about an hour. Yeah, some of them go longer, some of them go shorter. I mean, there's one I showed up a little bit late and it was done. But it's just like anything else. I mean, sometimes you walk up and you look at a car and you're like, you want to buy it. And the next one, you're like, no, this one needs to go to the mechanic and get checked out. Well, a house is a little different. Some of you walk up the front door and it's like, it's pretty easy. The
yeah,
next one you
it
walk up
does
and
need a
it's-
little more, because then
But
it
you know
isn't
what I mean,
something that
most
every
of them
professional
are-
can just
Well,
do.
it also depends
Like,
on
it
how
does.
engaged the homeowner is.
Right,
Some just want
that's
to be there doing house assessment, and back when we were doing COVID, we weren't making any contact with homeowners, they just came in their house.
Right.
So I think it depends on the property, the homeowner, and what do they actually want? Do they just want a risk rating, which is fine if that's what they want, or do they want more one-on-one interaction? And some of them don't want that engagement at all. So are you gonna go to the house and say, no, I'm not gonna do your risk assessment because you don't wanna engage? There's other ways, you know, you can do an email and respond back and telephone. There's other ways to engage. I know one-on-one interaction is the best, but sometimes we all have busy lives. Sometimes the homeowner's not gonna be there either. So, I mean, there's a lot to consider with these home assessments. And I don't think there's one right way on this should take 30 minutes, this should take an hour. It all is gonna depend.
It's homeowner dependent.
Yeah, and I think that's where the committee can come in and maybe make a plan on how we want to move forward with risk assessments and streamline them.
Well, I think it's like anything else. The challenge is recruiting the volunteers that are willing to engage themselves, to take the training, and have the ability and the time to go out and
Right.
boots
And-
on the ground in the field.
And you have to have the organization in place to organize those volunteers. Like there's logistics to every one of these that we have to consider. So just getting people out there doing it, somebody's got to be making sure that everything's organized and that they are trained, and somebody's got to be doing that training. The training could happen in an evening and then a field session, kind of like Bridget did with you. That could happen. There are places like Ashland, Oregon. Bridget is part of a volunteer training program right now. It's a course. It is a college course that they are doing for home assessments. And it's like a 6-week course that is 1 or 2 nights a week. I'm not sure, but it's pretty involved.
Volunteers do that.
Well, they do. They do, because here's the thing. I totally hear what you're saying, because it's, people just don't have that much time, but it's also a big deal. It's also a big deal. It's not, can we save this house? It's, we need to identify every potential vulnerability, because the one we don't could be what takes their house. A broom on a front porch, a doormat, both of those have caused the demise of a house to a wildfire. So you miss that, and that's on you, and you feel that. And so it is a big deal, you know, and it's, we lost a structure in the fire that I was just on. And I'm like, what were the things on there that I could have told that person? I didn't do an assessment on the house, but I think that if I had been there, could I have helped them? It was embers, 100%. It was embers that took that structure. Could I have prevented that? You want people trained enough to identify that. So, but that's for the council to decide. Do we want a 6-week-long course, or do we want a night and a day and get them going? What works best in Ravalli? That's what we decide. But that's it. Do we want resident and community mitigation? In that incorporates home assessments. Do we want that as a focus area as well? Separate, so we do community engagement, CWPP, and resident and community mitigation. Do we want to do those 3 areas?
Well, let me just throw this out there too. We originally started off with coming up with goals, right? Last time we were here. We came up with some big ticket items. I think that everybody said education, said funding, we said CWPP. And then we looked at the map, as we had brought up last session, but we didn't have the handouts, nor did we have the definition to it. So as Kristen went through this map tonight, rather than us saying, hey, here's our goals, this is what we want to do, these are our needs. And I think it's more of, this is what we actually really need to get done. So covering all these areas in this chart, I mean, we put up there, if you guys are all in agreement with, hey, community engagement, I think that's pretty much our education perspective. Resident and community mitigation along similar lines, and then CWPP funding. So we've already had several shows of hands of who's interested in what. I think the only thing left that we haven't really checked the box in is is there anybody that's interested in the funding aspect of it? That is in grants, knows somebody that writes grants, wanting to track down grants? I mean, some people have that passion of finance. Personally, that's my wife. Unfortunately, I didn't get that gift. But if any of you guys out here have it, please let me know. We'd be glad to put you into that. So
So this is basically what I do for a living is write grants.
this is
So,
what I'm looking for.
yeah, so I'm happy to do that. And serve that role.
Perfect.
One form or another, I write grants.
Looking at the grants.
That's-
It is, they're
That's,
tied
that's,
together.
as a grant writer, I would say the first thing we need to do is the CWPP. And so,
But there is that, and I'm glad Mike brought that up, because that coordinator is kind of critical, because Bridget's around for just a little bit longer. Like, really, we have funding for Bridget through September, and then we have maybe 6 months more funding for a coordinator. And if we can pull the right strings, it'll be Bridget. But who knows? Because the state is a government entity and they operate in a different universe. So we are going to need somebody to drive the bus too. It doesn't have to be a funded coordinator if we have somebody that's committed to it and has the time to kind of take on the role that Bridget's doing, make sure that the meetings are being held, make sure that people get the notes, make sure that that networking is happening. She's still networking out to all these other people that should be at the table. Trying to get them to come and have their voice be heard. And so that is a piece that will be important, especially as we start getting projects in line. So I don't know, I don't know if that comes under funding. It probably does, unless you don't want to fund a coordinator. Like, that's a group decision. It isn't a directive. It's do we want to try and find funding for a coordinator? Or do we want to see if we can build that into the CWPP and try to push to get funding for the CWPP as fast as we can? And I don't know.
Think about though.
Yeah,
I do know it's 8:35, but
because I'm up here. I
Hey,
talk too much.
I'm thankful that you are, because what a wealth of knowledge for the evening. So that was awesome. She always sits back there in the back, nice and quiet.
It is rare for me.
Yeah. But maybe that's something we discussed though, is go over what does that look like as far as the coordinator? Are they gonna go to all the county commission meetings? Are they gonna go to all the different all the different valley fire meetings? Continue to do this? Are they gonna help write grants and be the champion of everything that we're doing? So if that's the case, and they're plugged in on every level, then that's pretty much a full-time job. So for myself, I'm pretty fortunate. I am volunteering. I literally talk to these gals by once, maybe twice a month, maybe 3 times, and then show up and help run a meeting. I really don't do much of the behind the scenes work. They do, and they are doing plenty of that. So I can't do this here myself. I have 2 other jobs at work, so I just like to come and help out where I can. But for a coordinator position, my 2 cents, I think it's a full-time job without a doubt. So
Like, we bought right now. We don't-
At least probably for 6 months to a year to get it off. And then part-time maybe after that. But that's what Byron, when we first were looking at doing this, we asked Byron, because that's his job, is pretty much grant funding. He's got to find funding to keep the Bitterroot RCMD afloat. And he had said, you know, to keep the council going, it probably would be full-time for at least 6 months, probably a year. And then 20 hours a week after that, just to keep you going, yeah. And that's to keep it strong. And there's like that was the one critical aspect of a successful wildfire council in our research of wildfire councils that have been around and have staying power and are doing great things. They have a paid coordinator. They have somebody dedicated to it, and that's their job. So that's initially the whole push behind us trying to get the funding in the first place, so that we had somebody permanently driving the bus. So, but that doesn't have, it doesn't have to be that way if we feel we can do it elsewhere. But I think it is pretty critical.
Questions or thoughts, comments? I think we covered a lot of ground this evening, but there's still a lot of things left that we need to plug into. Just swipe the next slide, see what we got. Nope, committees, that, we kind of did that.
Hi.
So we do have a little bit of a pulse on the group as far as committees. I know there's some folks that aren't here as well that we'd love to ask questions to, but we have everybody's email. I jotted down the notes of who's interested in what, and then we can reach out and start putting those, plugging them all together, so. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of action for, well, we need, I want action items. We have our county fairs. We have public engagement activities that are coming up.
The county fair will be before the next meeting. So that's something that if there's interest in the group here to help support staff, I will get with you. Maybe I'll put an email out to the whole council or to at least the active members. And if folks want to, I have a schedule set up. The trailer will be there right now. I'm coordinating it all, so I'll get information out as far as that event. And then moving forward, I guess it would be Judy putting together a schedule of maybe potential events and working with the community on staffing those. Who's interested, I guess, as far as those are coming up fast. I mean, we've got September, October.
Right. And put things on your radar too. Workshops, community conferences. I've done a number of wildfire conferences, and they're great ways to involve and engage an interested public, right? Because you get the public who's interested in what you're talking about, and you outreach to those who should be interested. So that is something this council definitely could do. But it's a big endeavor, but it's a worthwhile and good one. So that's also an option for the future and for the downtime, you know, or the spring. So yeah, a lot of those events take signing up and money. And so that can be tricky too, because we can only pay certain ways. And so, yeah, I'd say sift through events and see what you think is the best thing for your money. And then we get that information out and try to recruit people from the group to attend. And I'd say everybody read the CWPP. If you haven't yet, read the CWPP so that you understand what it is, because that's our foundation that we're going to work off of.
Is there a copy of the one with the map that the commissioner checked?
I think, oh, so you actually could, that's a great idea. You could go to the meeting
Oh, God.
that, or you could
Yeah,
do
we
the
have all
recording.
archives for that day.
Kristen, would Byron have a copy of it?
He probably would. I want to say we got it from him, but I don't know if it had the map. Hang on, I usually carry it with me because I'm not a crazy sort of person. Okay, I have it. But I want to say, doesn't have the map. And we had contacted Byron about the map before, when we talked about the CWPP before. And I don't think we received it. So we need to do work on tracking down that map. The one,
Who matched it? Who did the map?
You have something, Bridget?
I did receive maps from Byron and I sent them in an email previously after one of the meetings. But I can send that out again, or maybe we can just post it to our website for people to access easily.
honestly, that map doesn't matter. We would need to do an updated one, and we have the data. The state, that's what the state is working on, is getting all that data at the county level. But the Montana Wildfire Risk Assessment, you just Google that. It's a report that came out last May. And it has very localized risk assessment data.
There's also a map of it.
And Headwaters has it, yeah.
Put a map out.
Yeah, the data is there. It is just for us to really gather and use for our purposes. So the old map doesn't really matter. All it matters is to say that at that time, that was the stumbling block. It probably won't be now because it's out there. That the risk data is out there. Ravalli County is the red thumb.
Maps, everybody always fights. over
Our
maps.
views over maps, but yeah, it's
The
there.
risk data goes beyond maps.
Yeah, there's structure ignitability, and ratings based on that structure. It's very in-depth, but go to Montana Wildfire Risk Assessment. And you can see some pretty in-depth data, but it's out there, and our map will be different.
All right, great. So this is the CWPP is available online.
Yeah, so
Okay,
if it's not on our website, it will be on our website, but I think it is on our website. Right, and you just want to have the one that says October 2009 update. That's the updated one. But remember, the one that we
Yeah.
will be updating is actually the 2006 one, because this one was not.
Make sure you drink the coffee before you try to.
I know.
Yeah, it's got a lot of
Read
good
that,
information,
Chris.
but it's got a lot of information.
You've only got another one.
I know. Oh,
So, yeah, no. So for next meeting, read the CWPP, have an idea on that, and maybe have some ideas on if you want to be involved with duty and community engagement. Make sure
Yeah.
that you come with some ideas on that, but also respond to Bridget or Anna for activities.